Okay, so this is your favorite song, so yeah, you can go ahead.
I feel so thrown under the bus. Yeah, I think it's justified to say that it's my favorite because I don't know if you recall this, but Retriever was initially conceived as a purely instrumental track.
Oh yeah. I remember I wrote it, and then after that I was like, darn it, I have to find something else to write.
Yeah, it appeared in the original album as the musical interlude, like the pure Mervin track. And somewhere down the line, I was like, I want to go to there.
Yeah, the itch was too strong.
I want to jump on that.
Yeah.
It's those driving beats, man. It was really enticing. It calls to you. It called to me.
Yeah, I remember it's those first few bars when the bass line comes in, and then you're like, oh, this beat.
Yeah. And I was like, can I get on that? Can I
hop on the train?
Can I surf that? Surf that melody. Yeah. So I don't know, how does that make you feel?
I mean, at first it was like, oh no, I need to write another thing now. I need to write another thing because like you are gonna do this thing, and then yeah. No, but it was cool, and like, what made you came up with that kind of like analogy for like danger or like impending, like something coming? Like,
I'm glad that is detectable. I'm glad that comes through.
Oh, that's very clear. Yeah.
I think in large part also because of like the track itself, right?
Yeah.
Like the brooding quality. But if you think about this in the context of the album and where it sits, it's kind of like in the middle, right? It's it might even be because there's Ghost, Gap, Plato. Yeah, so this is the middle track.
Yeah.
And so I wanted there to be this deepening of the protagonist's crisis. Not only because I was in real life and in real time feeling this sense of doom, right? I also wanted there to be this arc and this sense of motion. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. And we talked about how like it leads very nicely from the end of Plato, which is like this depiction of like something is happening, like there's a rise, there's a impending, like something is coming, and then you go into this world that's like dangerous now, which is like Retriever.
Do you mean in terms of like we leave Plato with like the waves, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's like I mean I do want to point out that the way I've structured at least the lyrical trajectory of each track, like I do begin with a crisis, but I do like to arrive at a resolution with each
within
each one.
each world,
Yeah.
within each track itself.
I guess as with life, it never results in like stasis for
I mean,
forever
each
beyond
song
that.
is like mini arcs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is something strange because I've always felt like Late Bloomer was it's always like Late Bloomer is a soundtrack to something, and we both imagine worlds in very filmic ways.
Yeah. That's the end of.
I mean, no. So the question I have is like, and this is like an imaginary question from like a third person point of view. Like, if we both like have imagined this in a very like, lack of better word, like cinematic way, do you think we could have been clearer about that? Or like, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, I'm wondering if this is the best, like, I'm wondering if people get that at all. Yeah.
Because you've been submerged in the lyrics as well, right? And
yep, and in the making, I think for both of us, like Late Bloomer is a very like journey arc. It all represents like one larger story, but I'm wondering if the listener picks that up. Yeah.
There are a couple of things that come to mind, which is one, I think there are two levels to that, right? Because I think there's like a very visceral level to the response. So what does this on a level of like pure feeling and emotion, does it do its job, right?
Yeah.
But then I think on the other level, which is maybe, which is perhaps the more conscious cerebral level, I don't know, maybe in part it has to do with attention as well, right? And I'm speaking about all art and not just Late Bloomer, but how much attention is lavished on something as opposed to having it be in the background. Yeah.
No, I'm just thinking, wow, this will be hard to edit.
We can soldier on. I think that's a good question though. I mean, what do you think that comes out of like what,
I mean, I think it's like the whole album is definitely a cinematic like overview for us, but it's really up to, I feel it's up to the listener whether they feel that way or they take away like smaller vignettes from each like song, and then maybe over time as it matures, hopefully like it brings like different things as well. So like the work is like breathing and evolving.
Yeah, I think that's always the hope, right? That someone outside of you yourself even will return to it.
Yeah.
Will listen to it from front to back and purely listen to it as opposed to putting it on while they file their taxes.
Tax filing soundtrack.
Late Bloomer is the companion piece to your IRAS responsibilities. But then to even return to it throughout the course of time, I think that's the biggest ask, and it would be the highest compliment as well. But I don't know if that's an expectation any artist can have, and especially
in today's world. I remember like when I was younger, clearly I used to enjoy re-experiencing an experience. Like I would
Yes, we've
rewatch
talked
like
about this.
movies,
Yes.
and I would re-listen to soundtracks, and definitely like they would like bring me on the same roller coasters, but then each ride would be different in its own way as well, and that's the magic of it. And like these days with streaming, with like the advent of like social media, like we don't really like go back to something. We're always like searching for what is new and the new thing, and going for the new thing, and never ever like going back to something and keeping a ritual with it.
I like that idea of keeping a ritual with it. Yes, I remember this conversation because we were talking about how we've almost swapped positions, because you used to do that as a child, whereas I am usually a one and done person. But in the last few years, I've been returning to old favorites, and trying to, and just curious about watching them in the light of today and who I am today. You know, it's a bit of nostalgia, and to me, it was interesting to hear that you no longer do that, because I felt like it was a very old person move to just, you know, return to things from the past.
Yeah.
But I have I have heard of people who maybe once a decade will like pull out the same book to just read afresh.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that idea.
There's this thing also that our memory like doesn't recall things the way we think it does. So like it's more of feeling, and the actual memory is often very different. And when you revisit it, like it's often like very different from what you imagine it to be.
Yeah. I mean, case in point, this podcast experience, right? Where I'll like listen back to an episode and be like the very first trailer that you cut, right? The announcing the series. I was like, I had totally forgotten we had said all that. And this was like 3 days or like 2 days later. Yeah. Memory has been something that has definitely fascinated me. In the idea of its malleability, there's also the idea that you can just remember things to be better.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
It's kind of up to you.
Yeah. Do you think our memory changes over time?
I have heard that the more you so-called remember something, you're actually reinforced. I mean, memory is actually a reconstitution of something, right? It's not so much a recollection, but a reassembling. And so I've heard that the more you remember something, you're cementing it, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I kind of feel like, get the feeling like our mind like changes it like every time we remember. And in each like remembering, like something changes, because we're always changing anyway. And
yeah, totally.
It's both exciting but scary that that happens as well.
Yeah, what used to freak me out was like that that you and someone else would have, like someone else could hold a memory of something that you have completely forgotten.
Yeah.
So it's like they have a secret about you. The two of you could have participated in something, but come away with different experiences of something.
Yeah.
Which is even like our recollection of the night we met. Like you came away with one piece and I went away with another. But I think it's again very apropos that we're talking about reshaping perspective, because that's actually, surprise, that's actually what Retriever is about.
Yeah.
That's part of the resolution of Retriever. Like Retriever starts out as, Retriever is all about perspective.
In a way, like songs or things that we revisit, like photographs, songs, video tapes, movies, old movies that we have watched. Like, I feel like these are like signposts in a way, or like guides, because these are the hard facts that that your mind can't distort. I feel like what your mind changes is the feeling you have or the feeling you associate with them. But then if you revisit a memory and solely a memory in your mind, like that changes due to how your mind like is at the present moment, or what experiences you have gone through up to that present moment. But then if you revisit a photograph, the photograph is always a photograph, or the song is always a song, it's always a record of something. And that's why I feel like that's like so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to hear your take on this. But for me, art has always been a way to capture and capsule a point in my life.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so for you as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. How does that? I mean, do you recall the circumstances around the recording of a track? Is that how that works for you, or?
No, I think
emotion,
it's more emotion and a feeling. Like I said just minutes before we recorded this, like I don't remember. Like you will have to jog my memory with like what we did for Retriever and how we ended up here. Yeah.
Okay. So what happens when what happens when you forget?
I think for me it's more I want to encapsulate the mythology or the feeling or the world that I've like experienced or conjured or like channeled, and bottle that and be able to like revisit that feeling, but not necessarily like the actual like memory of it itself. Yeah.
That is interesting. That is interesting because it's not so much. Yeah, it's not so much a memory as like teleportation or transforming your internal state.
Yeah.
Right. Which I guess that's what music is the best at doing.
Yeah.
Which is affecting you on such a gut and primal level.
So what did you remember for Retriever?
Apart from the fact that I was not supposed to be on Retriever, the final bit after the interlude with the cacophony of Sal voices.
It's just two Sal voices.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, which was a happy accident, right?
Yeah.
Which I don't recall exactly.
I mean, we had one version of it, and then you wanted to revise it in terms of like the lyrics, and the delivery. So we came back another week, and then you recorded the new lyrics. But then when we played it back to monitor it, I hadn't like muted like the earlier one, and so both played back at the same time, and they kind of like interacted with each other.
Yeah, especially because when I rewrote the lyrics, I wanted to keep some of the phrasing and keep some of the sentiment, and so the voices actually dovetail at certain points, including the phrase in the same place, right? Yeah. Which I guess maybe blew our minds at the time. Like, in the same place.
And I remember it's what I said, or what I felt was like, oh, it's present Sal talking to past Sal, or past Sal, or like present protagonist talking to like the past.
Yes. I'm trying to recall the lyrics now, but
So it's like, you're here, I'm
Yeah.
glad you came.
Yes.
It's been a while since both of us been in the same place. And
Yes.
the other one is like, been years since we've both been in the same place.
Yeah. I'm glad you came. It's been years since we've been in the same place. Beyond the mountains, but I never changed. It's been a while, but it don't make a mistake. Get on this, pick up the scenes. Look at how this became a masterpiece. Yeah, I mean, on that topic of memory, maybe there are some things that, some things are just perfect the way they are for the moment in which they existed. There's a thought, just putting it out there.
Yeah, and it's always different when you go back to it after that.
Yes, yes. I mean, I was thinking about what you said, right? About having watched certain things, certain shows in your childhood, and I imagine they must have created some kind of like feeling in you.
I mean, that's why we have like videotapes of our childhood or like photos, because then again, like when I revisit like these artifacts, like it's so different. It's like a world, like when I see myself in like the 90s, like early 90s, like that's such a different world. That's crazy. Like it's like, wow, that was like in the past, and that really seemed like the past, like from the colors of the photo to the objects in the photo, like old playgrounds, like old void decks, people, old hawker centers, and like it's, I think at that time you don't realize like what kind of world that was until like you go back to it, and also the other side of it is that when you revisit it, that creates like a different moment from the moment in which the event like occurred. By revisiting it.
Yeah. My brain is breaking. Do you find yourself thinking about time a lot?
Yeah, in a way, I think, especially with music, which is something that an art form that operates like with time, right? It needs the essence of time.
Yeah, that is fascinating. Film as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Film as well.
Yeah, frames per second.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I haven't really like thought about time the way that we spoke about today. Yeah, it's always what is the essence of what I'm trying to capture in the moment, rather than thinking about time like as a whole, as a macro. Yeah, I think you think about time a lot.
I do, but then I do. First, let me confess, I do. But now that I've posed that question, and now that I'm reflecting on it, is there anyone who doesn't really think about time? Right?
Or like, do we sit down and think about it, or like, is it just a thought in passing?
Because it's the most constant, right? And I mean, we were just going through art forms. I think even the novel is in one way or another about time as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah, are we extricable from it? I mean, I also bring it up because late bloomer itself is
about time.
Yeah. It's about.
That's true.
It's about. I mean, we just said it here, right? Like even in the name of the
it's about going through time.
Yeah, and the name of the track itself, Retriever. on the one hand, Retriever is name checked in the track itself. It's a reference to the dog that's in the window that the protagonist sees and initially mistakes for something more threatening. Yeah. Fun fact. A retriever, a regular house breed. But it's also a retrieval of the past self, and
then you meet your past self, and then
it's a retrieval of maybe some of the more beautiful aspects of one's younger or former self. Does the music trigger anything in you?
I mean, for me, it's still a point. It's a linchpin in the continuity of the story between like Plato and this like going on this journey. And for me, it's still, even with like lyrics composed on top of it, like it still functions as that. So for me, Retriever is like going through something, going somewhere. And like certainly like things are developing in like a darker sense, or like there's danger, or like you're going deeper, and like for me it's like you're going through something. And for me, like Late Bloomer as a whole is like a journey through time, and like this is where like we used to call like the time skip happens, and like
yeah. Because I guess that's what happens during that interlude, right? The jump, it's a jump cut.
That
is interesting how this piece was originally conceived as a bridging. Like there was no narrative component ascribed to it, but
it does play an important role in the larger narrative. I feel like there isn't so much like development like there is in like Plato, or even like Gap, but it functions like as an important like pivotal point as part of the whole.
Pivot is a good word. Pivot is a good word. But that's interesting. You say that there isn't much development in the previous two, like.
No, and there's more development in Gap and in Plato.
Oh, there's more development.
As compared to like in Retriever. I feel like in Retriever it's just this like tunnel of like you're going through this. It doesn't really change a lot. Whereas in Plato, like there you go through like a lot of changes. Like
I see. I see. And yet there is like a breakthrough. I mean, it's funny you use the word tunnel, because it feels like there is a breakthrough.
It's just getting to the end of the tunnel, I feel, and then you're in a different world.
I also really love that crash at the end of like the first like the boom.
The
explosion at the end of the first half.
Over exploration of like nature sounds.
Was that a nature sound?
That was thunder.
Oh okay. It's very cathartic. It's very cathartic.
There's always like nature throughout Late Bloomer, because you are in this landscape, and nature is always like chasing you as you go through like this journey. Nature is always chasing you. It's always there one way or another. It's lingering, it's always following you. It changes all the time, but it's always there. That's why you hear like the water, you hear like the fire from like the wood, you hear the sand, you hear like thunder and rain, and like it's always like around.
You've never phrased it in that way, which is why I'm
it's
so
part
I'm
of
so
the
taken.
world
Yeah,
building.
but it's but you said nature's always chasing you, which I feel like it's it's very evocative. And I wonder how much of that seeped into the writing, right? Because I found myself using a lot of natural references as well to hands, feet. I think fingers are in this track, and then obviously like the animal, like the predators. And
I mean, one way or another, they must have like seeped in, and I always thought like the story is it might seem detached, but it's actually very connected to like the soundtrack.
I one thing I really appreciated about this this project, this exercise, was it really pushed me to write more visually, I think, and really like I don't know, tap into a more vivid way, I think, of painting of painting a scenario. I
think you pretty much like successfully like reached that point. Like I think everything was like very, very immersive and like evocative in terms of like the storytelling and the lyrics of each track.
Well, this is now just coming to me. Something I read over the weekend, which is it's something Brian Eno said about the charisma of uncertainty and how he's trying to cultivate that, because there's such a gravitation towards knowing, right?
Yeah.
But I think what maybe gets overlooked, or what maybe gets forgotten or set aside, is the ungainliness of the process, and how things are like they're made by like scrounging and scraping and but he also said a lot of love and care. But things are so bloody and messy as they are being put together.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the process of like giving birth is always like bloody and messy and treacherous and it's all I think we've talked about this. It's all the things you don't see. It's the duck like paddling vigorously under the water. It's like it's all the things you don't see.
Optics. We've talked a bit about optics.
It's the color grading, the editing.
Not to mention all the self-doubt. All the self-loathing. Just not to mention it's not even like the
that's just
actual work. It's like
the iceberg.
It's like it's the psychic labor as well, and the psychic energy that goes into. But you said something really that really struck me recently, which was like just this idea of you believe if the wheels keep turning.
Yes. No, it's funny because I revisited like that episode, and I was also like reminding myself like, we just need to keep the wheels turning. Like, we just need to go on.
Yeah, I mean it's also on my mind today because I was listening to something this morning. But this idea of actually just choosing the thoughts to which to subscribe.
Exactly. It's your reaction to the world, your reaction to everything, and you control that within your mind, and that gets affected, but you decide how you feel about the external stimuli.
And even the internal, internal stimuli.
Yeah.
Although I will say it's always easier said than done.
Of course, yeah.
But something about memory also just came to mind, which I think applies to retriever. And I mean, retriever is like it's a depiction of a lot of internal turmoil, right? And internal breakdown. So the danger and the perils are not outside, as evidenced by, like the menacing creature is actually just like a harmless golden retriever.
So the danger isn't outside, but it's like it comes from within.
Yeah. And I mean, how this ties into memory for me is because you can look at this and be like, wow, this is like an immortalization of a really tough time. But then it became this. It flowered into this. It's a track. It's a record. It's a song. And I mean, it ends with, look at how this became a masterpiece. So I think even while I was in the midst of chronicling, all these really, really uncomfortable states of being, I also knew that eventually I would be able to look at it and I would be able to wield it, and it would be something really beautiful that would stand on its own and exist.
Yeah.
And that's the power of memory, I guess.